Welcome to the Highest Health Podcast. Raise your health, elevate yourself, and enrich your life. Experience a world of health sovereignty. As you near your highest health, you near your most luminous self. Welcome to today's episode of Highest Health with our guest, Brian Sanders, the filmmaker for the upcoming 6-part series film called Food Lies. He is also the owner of Nose to Tail, a regenerative farming meat delivery company, bringing you the top quality meat, including organ meats that are blended into ground meat. So if you don't like the flavor of organs, you can get it ground into just regular beef and it'll help dilute the flavor. And I've personally tried them. It's delicious. I do love organ meat, but even for folks who don't love organ meat, they like it. He also has a skincare line made with beef tallow, and this stuff just absorbs so beautifully onto your skin. He's got a podcast called Peak Human, bringing so many different doctors on the show and other people in the health and wellness space. He's originally a mechanical engineer, but after his own health experiences, decided to dedicate his life to helping others achieve their highest health. In this episode, we talk about changing your body composition through food, common food lies, avoiding seed oils, his trip to Africa and spending time with a couple of different tribes there, and so much more. Let's dive in. What is up, Brian Sanders? Welcome to the Highest Health Podcast.
Natasha, hello. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, so fun meeting you at Paleo FX and roping you to come on this podcast.
Absolutely. I love it. This is my job. My job is spreading this info.
Yeah, it really is. Cool. Well, hey, thanks again so much. I appreciate you. Let's dive into it. I know previously you were a mechanical engineer. Can you get us started by telling us how a mechanical engineer wound up weeds deep into the nose to tail regenerative agriculture meat-based world? You have a animal-based skincare line. You're working on a film called Food Lies. You're the host of a podcast called Peak Human. And you even went to Africa and spent time with the Hadza tribe.
Yeah. Oh, I went all in. It was a whole journey. Yeah. It's been an 8-year journey for me in the nutrition part of it, and 4.5 years making the film. And yeah, mechanical engineering, it was a long way from that. I started making films like just growing up and video and all that stuff. So I did kind of always want to do that stuff and went away from it. And so I did just kind of swing back around. And I grew up with a guy who went to film school. We used to make all the videos together and take all the classes together. Now he's making the film with me. So it does kind of make sense that he's amazing. And the film is so good now. And it's actually a 6-part series now because we have so much great content and there's so much to say, so many stories to tell, info to dispense. So yeah, it's been a long journey, but yeah, I think the engineering background has been good though. I think I joke around that I wasn't indoctrinated into the medical system and the big pharma system that just wants to give everyone pills and procedures, and some of the doctors will understand that, they're kind of stuck in the matrix and then they come out, right? And then those are the doctors that you and I probably know, or the practitioners or the chiropractors, anyone, right, who's just kind of got themselves out of the system they will kind of say, hey, I was just doing what the textbooks told me, and all my professors just said the same thing. And everyone's just like, yeah, you have this thing, and you just like give them the 7 to 11 servings of whole grains, and then they're not going to follow the patient will never listen to you. And then you just give them drugs, and just give them the pills and tell them to go home. And yeah, so I think it was good that I wasn't in that system maybe, and I came at it from a different approach. And I
Mm,
have a lot of buddies in the nutrition world that are engineers. They happen to have this, they have this same passion for it because it's like this problem to solve. And we get to like look at it from this root cause engineering perspective. And we're like, wait a second, why would meat be bad for us when we've been eating meat for all of history?
right.
And somehow the other people don't think about those questions. They're just in the lab, they're doing these myopic studies. They're like, oh, well, the TMAO, it's higher, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, to talk about TMAO real quick. They're saying, fish is well regarded as healthy around the world, right? And they're trying to say meat is bad. And so then they're trying to blame why meat's bad on this really nuanced detail that no one cares about called TMAO.
Hmm,
But then fish has more TMAO, or people who eat fish have greater levels of TMAO. So it's like, okay, so
right.
you guys are all backwards. You're not making any sense. So that's my kind of like high level reasoning of like why it makes sense to just come at it from a different perspective and think about it differently. And that's what we're doing here.
So, what was the spark, though, that drove you to get into this field? Was it something gradual, or like what in
Oh
your
yeah.
brain sparked that you're like,
Well,
I'm dedicating my life to this?
yeah, I know it wasn't just like, a random idea I had. There was definitely some things going on. It was kind of these two simultaneous things. So, you know, I don't know if you're 30 yet. When I turned 30, a lot of
I
people who
am.
turn 30, okay, you look young. That's good. You're like, wait a second, I can't eat whatever I want anymore. You kind of get to this point where you can't just, well, some people find this earlier in life that they're just not doing as well health
Mm,
wise. And so that kind of happened to me around the same time I lost both my parents, actually. So they had these chronic diseases that are so common in westernized countries and that we kind of expect people to have. It's
mm,
just like, oh, well, yeah, you turn 40 and then you turn 50 and then you get the like 3 medications go to 6 medications. And then you have, of course, everyone just has all these problems.
right.
And quick aside, going to Africa, they didn't have all those problems. Depending on how far away you got from the cities, they were 80, 90, and they just didn't have problems. They
That's
didn't have,
incredible.
yeah, we can get back to that. But so
Yeah.
my parents just had all the problems and they were just undiagnosed as well. So, I
Mm,
mean, well, they had the overt problems, which is cancer and Alzheimer's, which a lot
okay.
of people don't even understand are related to diet. It's not like I'm saying that if you eat a good diet, you won't get cancer, but
Right. Right.
there's a far better chance that you won't get cancer if you eat a healthy diet, live a healthy lifestyle, and avoid, certain environmental factors as well. But Alzheimer's, now it's a lot of people call it type 3 diabetes, right? It's kind of
Mm,
like insulin resistance of the brain. And
yep.
so this is very diet and lifestyle related. And wow, I just posted about a study in Africa looking at a population in Africa and a very similar African American population in Indiana. And they were
Hmm,
genetically the same, right? So it's the
okay.
same type of people, the same age groups. They made sure these were the same people, both of African descent.
I
But
see.
then these people moved to America, and the rates of Alzheimer's and dementia were 2.4 times as much, 2.2
Wow.
and 2.4 times. So it's the same thing. It's like they both had the same ApoE, 4. There was the same amount of people with these
Right.
certain statuses, and there was the same age and the same everything. Yet just by living in the US with our way of living, their dementia and Alzheimer's was way greater. So yeah, people need to understand that these are diet and lifestyle diseases. And then, of course, type 2 diabetes and all the other stuff, anything
Hmm.
to do with health, I think has some kind of root in the diet and lifestyle. And yeah, basically, I woke up to that and realized that my parents just succumbed to these things that everyone thinks is normal now. And they also weren't really warned. I say undiagnosed as in I look back and now knowing what I know now, I'm like, oh yeah, they had pre-diabetes.
Mm,
Well, now we have stats. I don't know what it is. It's like 60% of the US has either diabetes or pre-diabetes.
yeah.
And I saw another stat straight from the CDC saying 9 out of 10 people with pre-diabetes don't know it.
Wow.
Imagine that. So they admit this. This is like not some, random little study that, my buddy did. It's like the CDC says 9 out of 10 people who have it don't know it. So that's the whole thing. They didn't know it. When some signs of it are basically you're having troubles with blood sugar. You can have that abdominal obesity. You have even just like skin tags. Like there's so many little signs of what's going on when you're developing these problems. And doctors don't really warn you. I was just interviewing someone before, and they're like, yeah, my A1C was a 5.7, and no one told me anything. Like that's pre-diabetes, or
Yeah.
5.9 even. It was in the
Wow.
pre-diabetes range of 5.9. And the doctor's not like, oh my God, we need to, change your diet. They're just like, I don't know. It's like, whatever. You're 45. Everyone comes in my office has like a 5.7 to 5.9 A1C. And that's just the world we live in. So man, that turned into a long story, but that's like my whole mission is to wake people up and let them know that you don't have to live like that. You don't have to just walk around getting new medications each year, and that you can change your life. And so, yeah, my personal thing too is I made those changes about
Mm,
8 years ago, and I kind of went on this journey. And it was, it wasn't like that day I switched, but
right,
I
right.
started learning about ancestral health, and I call it ancestral health, right? It's just what did our ancestors eat? So it's not paleo, it's not keto, it's not carnivore. It doesn't have a name. It's just, let's look at just the patterns of humans.
Right,
And I
right.
started going down that path, and I made a few changes, simple changes in my diet. It's not like I all of a sudden started counting calories, or I all of a sudden like was on we started weighing my food, or,
Yeah. Or
tracking
like
macros. I didn't,
running crazy amounts or something.
not at all. I run
Yeah.
less. I run way less now. Actually, I don't jog anymore. I
I
actually
love it.
I like to sprint, or I like to walk, and I like to lift weights, or I like to play sports. Actually, I don't like to just sit there and do steady state cardio. I just think that's a bad way, right? This conventional advice. It's like, okay, to lose weight, you need to get on a treadmill for an hour a day, and you need to cut your calories. And I think it's just so bad. So I just made these simple changes. I just kind of took out bread, and, so simple. It's like, oh, okay. Learned about processed grains and like added sugar and stuff, and a
Mm,
bit about like seed oils back then. Now it's like getting more into the mainstream about avoiding seed oils, but
mm.
8 years ago it wasn't. But I was like, yeah, that makes sense. These are these highly processed oils that weren't around. Anyway,
Right,
started just
right.
cutting those things out, still eating amazing delicious meals,
Mm,
and I just started dropping weight. My body composition just changed. Like but I was always athletic. You know what I mean? I was always active, and I was
mm.
always playing sports and all this. But I look at these photos and I just look like a little sausage. Like I wasn't obese, but I was just puffy everywhere. My face,
Yeah.
my neck, like my stomach. And all I did was just change my food choices a tiny bit to actually more delicious meals. I'm
Right.
like, oh wait, man, I'm just gonna eat a steak, and I'm gonna grill up some onions and mushrooms. Like, this is delicious. Like, why do I need the pasta and the bread? Like,
Sounds amazing. Yeah.
yeah. And then my whole life changed, and my allergies went away. My like kind of chronic overuse injuries from using the computer went away. Joint
Wow.
pain went away. My like kind of acid reflux, kind of heartburn problems went away.
Yeah.
And my, I had more energy. I didn't have that like 2 p.m., take a nap type of thing that so many
Right.
people have.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. It was amazing. And so I just understood that it was very simple, and I wanted to tell the world.
No, that's awesome. And that's one of the reasons why I love your story, Brian, is because I feel like in today's modern society, especially in the US, I feel like in Europe, it's not so much this way. But like when you tell people, like you eat healthy or you live healthy, like they think it's like this crazy hard pursuit. And for some, it might be depending on what their status is. But yeah, for you, you were like, my meals became way more delicious. I'm not jogging every day. I lift weights. I don't know how often do you lift weights, but
It's like twice a week. I only do twice a week for 25 minutes. It's my thing.
yeah. So you have a real minimalistic approach. And I think it's such a great message to folks out there where it's like, just take these simple changes and apply them, and you're going to see really good results.
That's it. That's one of my main messages. You nailed it.
Yeah.
We're not, you don't have to get quit your job to be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So many people make it seem like it's this enormous effort. And I'm like, it's the same effort. You just have to switch your focus.
So true. So you mentioned seed oils. I know this is something that in my friend group, I'm just like always telling my friends, like, get rid of those seed oils. And they're like wondering why I don't want to go out to eat with them. Or when I do, go out to eat with them, I'm like ordering a very specific way. Or sometimes I just won't order anything at all. And they look at me like I'm the weird one, but I'm okay with that. Yeah. So tell us about these seed oils. Why should we avoid them in our diets? And why are you such a big proponent of just getting some animal fat over these seed oils?
You can look at it scientifically, you can look at it logically, you can look at it from evolution, you can look at it from all different angles, and it all kind of converges on the same thing. It's like, why would I want these modern, highly processed industrial seed oils, right? So I always love to look at it from all the angles. And just evolutionarily, we didn't have these, right? That's just obvious. There's no one arguing that we had seed oils back in the day. You know what I mean? Like, we know we invented this technology in 1912, and it was like this crazy process that they had all this cotton seed left over and they were using it as machine lubricant. And they was like, we use this like hexane solvent because it smelled bad and was gross. You know what I mean? It was just like this industrial oil. And then they invented this way to deodorize it, right? And make it not smell bad, and kind of just, the 16-step process to clean it up. And it's genius if you're, have all this extra cotton seeds, or you have other seed oils and corn or wheat or soy, or, all these other ingredients that we have leftovers, and you want to make some money, right? It's a genius business plan of using all your stuff. So it was basically this whole marketing campaign to get people to eat them. And it goes along with Crisco too. Crisco was sort of invented in that time period where they're like, we can, make this highly processed alternative. And they used all these marketing tactics and huge budgets to try to convince people to use them. And they were kind of like, had these campaigns towards housewives back in the day, like, don't be like your grandma and use lard, and they were like, everyone like, oh, be the modern woman. This was like kind of the era back in the 50s, something like that, where they're just like, you can be like the greatest housewife ever and use Crisco. And, just,
I feel like that resurfaced in the 90s too.
It did. Well, because then that's when the real low fat paradigm came in the 90s. Yeah. They introduced the new dietary guidelines in 1980. And then actually, if we're using this in the film, if you look at the actual obesity statistics, it's going up for many years. And then at 1980, it sharply goes up.
Wow.
So it's funny that right when they introduced their low fat guidelines, that we started doing way worse. And this idea, they just basically have it backwards. They're saying that animal fats are bad, the ones that we've eaten for all of history, impossible to disprove. Do you know what I mean? Like, of course we use animal fats. There's no other fats we had. Like, we didn't have these. That's what I'm saying. So like, I don't get how anyone can even argue this. And then, they're saying, oh, somehow that these brand new oils that we invented are the healthy ones. And to go deeper into the science, it's basically a difference in the type of fat. And there's 3 different type of fats. There's mono unsaturated fats, polyunsaturated fats, and saturated fats, right? And then the saturated fats are what's in animal foods, right? And these are the ones that are more stable, and they have all their bonds basically closed. And then monounsaturated ones are still pretty stable and have less bonds open. And then polyunsaturated fats are the most unstable ones with the most open bonds. And that makes them prone to oxidation, right? So that's a problem, really. If you want to get technical, instead of just high level
Let's
logical,
get technical.
right? You have all these polyunsaturated fats, and they think that's good though. The hypothesis was back in the 1950s, they started having this, it's called the diet heart hypothesis. And this is when the beginnings of our dietary guidelines and why they went so wrong. And there's this whole story with Ansel Keys and the McGovern report and McGovern committee and President Eisenhower and his heart attack and all this stuff. But they basically thought, like saturated fats are bad, so we should get people to eat these polyunsaturated fats, which we'll refer as PUFAs. So that's the whole idea behind it. But they didn't understand that these were, unstable, they're prone to oxidation, all this type of stuff. So, you know what I mean? They didn't have all the information, I guess, back then, or whatever it was, it happened, right? And so so it turns out that when you put these oils, especially when you heat them over and over again, you put them in the fryers, right? All fast food restaurants, any restaurant, 99.9% of restaurants in America use seed oils in their fryer.
Yeah.
There is a 0.1%, if you can find them, that use beef tallow. That's what people used to use in the fryers back when I think our health was better. But they went on this big campaign to get them out, and it's way cheaper to use the soybean oil in the fryer.
Yeah.
Right. But they're like literally 0.1%. Like in Austin, there's one restaurant that uses beef tallow.
What's the name of it?
So,
Dewey something?
Dai Due.
Is that the one you're talking about?
No, well, that's a higher end restaurant.
Okay.
They actually, I don't even know if they got all the oils they use. I just know that there's just one. Well, Buffalo Wild Wings, actually, they randomly are a chain that has just decided, not for health reasons, that they just wanted to use beef fat.
Probably tastes better.
It tastes better. Yeah, I think they do it just for it to taste better. So anyway, you just don't want oxidized oils in your body, and you don't want this high ratio of PUFA in your body. Your body's just not used to it. To go back to the evolutionary side, our bodies are used to getting a certain type of fat. Well, all foods have all three types of fat in it, right? It's just about the ratio of those three types of fat.
And
so
what
we were eating
put through.
Yes. And we were eating natural foods for all of history. And so our bodies are used to that. It's like, okay, we got saturated fat. And then, yes, we got a little bit of this polyunsaturated fat, and it was fine, right? It's like, great. Yeah, we ate, some leaves and some nuts, once in a while. Or for a few months at a time, we ate some nuts, and nuts could have more polyunsaturated fats, and it was fine. And maybe that even helped us get fatter for winter. It's a good theory out there. It's just that's what polyunsaturated fats are good for, is getting you fat for winter, right? So it's like we ate more nuts, or we ate more kind of different sugary foods that maybe had more, also fats and carbs together, which is a whole nother topic of, just getting us kind of fat for winter, like a bear would get fat for hibernation. So you don't want these polyunsaturated fats in a super high ratio. And you don't, especially if they're oxidized, if they're put in a fryer and heated over and over again, and just your cells don't want them, your cell membranes don't want them, your body's it's just not ready for that. So why would you want these highly novel and industrialized oils? You know what I mean? Even if it's for the simple fact of you're just packing yourself with more oil, or like calories in general. Like I hate the calories in, calories out stuff, but at a certain point, you don't want to just be eating tons of like excess fat and sugar.
Your body just is going to store it as fat. And it's
people in the keto community they think your body's never going to store fat as fat. Like, right. Yeah. It definitely, like, there's some bigger people. I'm not going to name names, but yes, it happens.
It does.
And real quick, if the audience, some people are curious, they always ask me, like, what are the good oils? And it's like those, the fruit oils are okay. Like olive is a fruit, coconut is the fruit.
You do want to make sure that it's extra virgin though.
Yeah. You need to find, well, actually it's really hard to find really good olive oil and even avocado oil. There's two studies that kind of showed that they say that they're olive oil and they're not. So if you're using olive oil and avocado oil and you paid like $9 for it at Costco, I'm guessing it's not real.
Yeah.
And if you get like the good olive oil from, like an Italian market, and it smells like real, and it tastes, that the back of
Yeah.
your tongue, it has that tang,
Yep.
then yes, go for
Yeah.
that one.
And you always want to look for the harvest date too. Like you want the harvest date to typically be within like the last 6 months or so, simply because it has that harvest date on the bottle is also going to tell you that it's a higher
Mhm.
grade. Um,
Definitely.
um,
And you don't want to oxidize. Basically, yeah, you're talking about oxidization. And usually,
mhm.
and the good oils will have the dark bottles too, right? If you
Yep,
get a good olive oil, and that's to prevent the oxidation. You don't
exactly.
want the sun hitting it and it to get hot. Yeah.
All good points. Cool. What are some other common food lies that you've been coming across? We've gotten into the oils and how the whole calorie theme is really not the reason why our population is overweight and sick. But what are some other food lies that you've
Oh, well,
been?
I should go into that one a little bit more
Yeah, please.
because the uptick in 1980, I think, is a good illustration of that,
Mm,
right? The idea of calories in, calories out. So that means, so I guess the theory is in 1980, all of a sudden there was this worldwide coordinated effort to just eat more calories.
hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like if you're just saying it's calories in, calories out, so why did the entire world and or the entire US just decide, hey, we're slobs now.
I
We're
got.
just gonna eat more calories
I
at
see
the
where you're
same time.
going.
You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like
totally.
it doesn't make any sense. It
Right,
doesn't make
right.
any sense. So what did change was the type of foods they ate, right? Because I said that's when the dietary guidelines came
Mm,
out, and that was when the food pyramid was pushed, and they changed it to 7-Eleven servings of whole grains and
mm,
starches, and like the meat kind of was like moving towards the top of the pyramid,
mm.
and so I'm saying that's what changed. And that's what I see in all kinds of people we work with. I work with Dr. Gary. We work with patients, all kinds of people around me, probably people listening. They know if you don't have to count calories. It's way more about what foods you're eating and the quality of the foods and protein. And so I
Yeah,
think that's what happens. That explains it. It's not that everyone just decided to like just say, hey, I'm done, I'm just going to be a
kind of
slob.
shove my face.
Yeah, they just change their food. So if you move protein off your plate and you replace it just with some more empty calories, basically, which are pasta, bread, tortillas, right, whatever,
Sugar.
then that's what happens is you're basically shifting. Well, I like this protein. I like the nutrient to energy ratio. So this is a concept. I hope it doesn't get too nerdy. Dr. Ted Naiman's a friend of mine who's great. Talks about the protein to energy ratio a lot, where it's basically like you can just look at any food or your diet, which is just a combination, right? It's just like the culmination of all the foods you've eaten over time.
Mm,
And there's a certain protein to energy ratio of that, right? And if you lower that protein to energy ratio, which is what I said, you push protein off your plate. They say eat less red meat and eat more whole
right, right.
grains. You basically you're lowering your protein to energy ratio. So now your body wants the protein and the nutrients, right? That's why I call the nutrient to energy ratio, because protein is a nutrient. Your body wants the nutrition. It needs proteins, vitamins, minerals, like good fats. It needs all these things. And then there's
Absolutely.
energy, right? And energy could be from fat or carbs, and that just keeps your body running, right? It's so simple. That keeps you going each day. All the proteins, vitamins, minerals, and good fats is what your body needs to survive, to build and maintain muscle and all
Yep.
that. So if you're just lowering your protein to energy ratio or nutrient to energy ratio, like the food pyramid did, now you're getting less protein and nutrients and more energy. Okay, what happens? Your body just stores that energy as fat. It's so simple, and you eat more too. If you eat less protein and more energy with the foods you eat, if you're just talking about eating sort of empty calories from grains, breads, whatever, you basically eat more. There's something called the protein leverage hypothesis,
Hmm.
and they've done this study in all different types of animals, from like grasshoppers or crickets to mice to even humans. And
Wow.
basically, each animal eats to get a certain amount of protein, right? The
Okay.
body needs a certain amount of protein and eats to that amount. And if they switched out the food source, so it's easy to do with a rodent study. So they have, say, they know this by now. What's the correct protein to like fat to carb of what a mice, a rat needs? Okay. So say that's like 15% protein, blah, blah. If they
Yeah,
go down to 12% protein in the feed, then the rat just has to eat more of that feed.
I
Does that
see.
make
Yeah.
sense? So
Yeah,
it went from 15 to
absolutely.
12%. So now the rice is like, I need this protein. They don't know it's not like they're like a slob. They're like, I need more protein, so I need to eat more. And they just gain weight. It's the simplest thing ever. If you lower the protein ratio, they just eat more. So that's just what happened. That's like the simplest way to explain what happened. Because actually it's about the same. You can look back at the numbers, and the US went from say 15% down to 12% protein.
Mm.
Okay. So we lowered, as a nation, we lowered our protein to energy ratio and just gained weight accordingly.
Yeah, it's amazing how just skewing that one macro a little bit protein like changes your whole day essentially. It's like you're not hungry, you stop eating at an appropriate point. And then to circle back with what you were saying, when they lowered the ratio in that mice formula, the rodent formula, these animals were eating more to get more protein, but with that came other macros like fat or whatever it was, carbs, with the animals attempt to get more protein and then they're also ingesting more energy, essentially later on storing it as fat. And that's a lot of what's happening in the US too.
It's exactly what's going on. It's a good one. I like this type of thinking because you don't really have to get into the weeds of like
Mm,
diet wars. You
yeah.
know, it's like, oh man, my diet's the best, or like you have to be keto, or you have to do this. I'm like, not really. Like, I think what matters is getting good animal source protein and good fats and just avoiding processed energy.
Yeah.
So whenever you process energy, it's too much. Like processing down seed oils is a very, a way to get a highly processed form of energy, and processing down grains and sugar and all that is a highly
Mm,
processed form of energy. So that's why I always go back to those three. It's like you have the added sugar, the refined grains, and the seed oils. These three ingredients are sort of the worst ingredients for you for many reasons. And they're just basically processed energy, right? So it's just
yep.
like get rid of the processed energy. You'll be fine. Kind of like you don't have to go down some crazy dietary camp and, you're off the team if had one bad. It's like, oh man, I ate like a papaya. Now I'm not keto or something. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
It's like, no, it doesn't matter. Like if you're eating whole foods, you're probably good.
Yeah. If you're eating whole foods and getting enough protein, I'd say.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. That's what I say. It's both. You eat whole
Yeah.
foods and get enough protein,
And
you're
animal
not going to go
protein,
wrong.
like not really these like smoothie shakes or processed protein.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, but that mixes in with the Whole Foods name.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, so that I think that kind of encapsulates all the food lies. You asked about food lies in general. It's like
Right, right.
you can break off a whole bunch of smaller food lies into what we've been talking about, but
Mm,
like we just kind of explained most of the food lies out there. If you know these concepts, then you'll kind of know that everything else is a lie. It's kind of a scam. It's either a marketing thing, it's a big food, industry marketing thing or something. I mean, even just like the red meat, like a huge food lie is that red meat's bad for you. And we kind of already talked about that stuff, like why saturated fat's not bad. And like if you just know these simple concepts of ancestral health and like how humans came to be, it's based around animal foods, animal fat, whole foods, and not eating. We didn't have a bunch of processed industrial oils and grains and
right,
sugar. So
right.
that's it. You can solve all the food lies for yourself. You don't have to remember anything that I'm going to say in this podcast. You can just use your own logic, right? So it's like food lies. You need to eat. You like eating low fat products is good. No, that doesn't make any sense. Just know that everything kind of, well, basically in the middle of the grocery store is a food lie.
It's
You know
so
what I mean?
true.
These
So when you went to Africa and spent some time with the Hadza tribe, what were some surprising observations that you encountered?
Oh wow, yeah. So we also went with the Maasai too.
Oh, okay.
So
I didn't know
I'll
you
start
spent
with the
time with
Hadza.
the Maasai too.
No, yeah, the Maasai are famous for eating blood and milk. The men will live on blood and milk
Wow.
and meat. Blood, meat,
Right.
and milk basically for most of their life.
And they're all
But
like 6 foot
oh,
ripped
they're
men.
all they're in amazing shape, amazing health, amazing teeth too. Just great health. Your dental health is a very good indication of your overall health and your
Mm,
nutrition status. So,
absolutely.
so they're getting amazing nutrients from blood bean milk. But the Hadza, so yeah, the Hadza are we're in Tanzania, and they're kind of one of the last few remaining tribes that still try to live natively how they used to live. They're kind of being pushed off their land, so they don't have all the animals they used to hunt. And just in general, the whole world doesn't have all the big animals that we used to hunt, which is a
Right.
whole nother story about the like extinction of the megafauna. And like we used to be hunting woolly mammoth and gigantic creatures and be eating meat and fat for days, you
Yeah.
know?
It's
And
so
then
wild when you think of it that way.
but for like a million years, our ancestors were doing that, right? This is like the lion's share of our evolution, how our bodies change. And there were these gigantic animals roaming all the continents. And then there was a die-off. And there's different theories of overhunting or asteroidal impact, and the changed
Mm,
entire Earth. And it doesn't even matter which it was. We just know that they died out, and we had to rely on smaller animals. So that's a whole nother story. But just know that for pre-humans, for millions of years, we're eating gigantic megafauna with tons of fat and meat. So the Hadza, they can't get all the good animal foods they want anymore, and they're kind of pushed off their land, and it's this whole sad story. Same thing with the Batwa or the pygmies in Uganda.
mm.
We also visited them, and they've been pushed out of their rainforest where they used to just trap animals and eat just natural foods, but then they have all these mountain gorillas, and the government's trying to make money off tourists, and so
Ah,
they said, okay, you guys have to get out of the forest. So it's a sad story of this whole group of the pygmies or the Batwa. They have no skills, and I mean, they don't
right.
have like modern education, and now they have no where to eat. So they can't just eat out of the forest. And so that was really sad to see. So a bit of the same thing with the Hadza. So
Hmm.
they still are trying to live the way they've always lived, which is the men go out and hunt, and the women try to gather whatever other foods they can find.
Okay.
And they make their own arrows. They make their own bows and arrows out of just wood and whatever. They do trade for some arrowheads. There's the Toga tribe that they kind of work with some metal in a really primitive way. And it's really cool how they do like metal working with just like
Huh.
no tools.
Yeah, because
Their bellows,
don't you
they
need?
use the bellows. They
Huh.
like a cow stomach, and then they figured out how to use a cow stomach to like heat, use
Wow.
bellows to make the fire really hot, and then they collect some random like spare metal they find around the villages, and then they melt it down and make arrows. So the Hadza, so we went hunting with the Hadza, and they have different arrows for each animal. And yeah, they just go out each day, and they have a pack of arrows in one hand and their bow in one hand, and that's it. And they just roll
Wow.
out.
So they're
Yeah.
legit like bow and arrow hunting these
Oh
animals.
yeah. It's insane. Yeah, that's all they have. They
Wow.
they they did get some like modern shorts. I think it's a lot easier to like wear shorts than just like try to make some sort of like loincloth out of skins,
Okay. Yeah.
like shorts are a bit hard to fashion. Like you could just like drape something over you maybe, and that's kind of easier. But to make shorts, they're like, oh, okay, we'll get some khaki shorts from the tourists or something. So they're all just rolling around in like really dirty khaki shorts, and they just go out and hunt. Yeah, they just and so we went with them. They got a dik, which is a little deer like thing,
Hmm.
and right when we showed up, they just brought back, and we just started eating it. They just kind of sliced it open and immediately just gave me some of the liver.
Nice.
Like it's just 2 seconds. They just throw it on a rock. They slice it open. They take the guts out. They give them to the dogs, and then they sliced me off some of the liver, and I ate it raw. And they're surprised that I ate it, because
Well,
usually these Americans, they come in, they're like, why would I eat that?
right,
So I,
right.
I ate some raw liver. Then they cooked it over fire, right? They took apart the whole animal. It was a small animal, and they put it on sticks, and it just kind of like roasted by the fire, and everyone just kind of hangs out and eats. And so it's a really interesting life. They kind of just hang out and eat and joke around and like play some music or do whatever, like shoot the bow and arrow and then go hunt and then go eat. And they're just chilling.
Yeah, so hunting, eating, hanging out,
Hanging
and
out. It's like
playing
they're on
music.
vacation. It's like chill. Like, what do you do on vacation? Yeah, you just like hang out, like stay up talking and eat
Yeah,
and
yeah. It's like
yeah,
us in the modern world. We're always trying to like we work so hard so that we can go on vacation, but these guys are just like they're at vacation without any of that like excess work. It's like we're just working to try to get back to our like native lifestyle.
exactly. That's it.
Was sanitation a thing in Africa or
Oh,
you know?
no, that stuff really interests me because I kind of had this idea early on that I don't think I need to be using hand sanitizer and I don't wash cuts. Like I've just never washed my cuts. I mean, if
Your
I
cuts
like
of
sliced
meat,
open,
you mean?
what?
Oh, your
No,
cuts that you
like I'm talking
actually
about even
cut
on my
yourself.
body. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Like just in general, like I'm going to broadly talk about sanitate. It's like I just don't think that's they were getting scratched up,
Hmm.
their legs were all scratched up from thorns and
Yeah.
they're not sitting there washing it.
Right,
They did
right.
not wash their hands. They threw this animal on the ground and they started slicing into it. This knife has never been washed. This guy gave me a piece of liver on a knife that has been in the African like plains for years
Wow.
and never been washed and has guts on it. It had, the inside of the intestines on it, all kinds of weird stuff. Like there's like green and brown stuff. And I'm like, all right, I just ate it. Never felt better. Never felt better. I mean, I'll go to Mexico
Amazing.
on a trip and feel sick. I go to Africa for whatever, 17, 18 days. Never felt better. Didn't have a stomach ache once.
Incredible.
Nothing. Felt
Wow.
amazing. I'm just, yeah, just, I think that's a huge thing is like this, you want your microbiome needs to be fed and challenged. And
Mm,
there could be this whole idea about, why they're healthy and the microbiome could have a lot to do with that of like they're not over sanitizing, they're eating a diverse array of foods and all kinds of random stuff and not
right.
washing their hands and all that, and it builds a strong immune system. And yeah, I mean, I haven't gotten sick in about 7 years since I started. I kind of say I started 8 years ago. I think I wasn't like all in
Right.
until
Right.
about 7 years ago, and then I don't think I got sick since. And so, yeah, they do not have any sanitation that I saw. And I think that's good. I think that's good for you.
Yeah. I think it's also really good because they're not getting any of the chemicals that we're getting here with all of that sanitation, especially like with those traditional Purell pumps. Like that's pretty much all chemicals, and that is wreaking havoc on your hormones, your endocrine system. So
Oh my God.
yeah,
That's so huge. I don't know if you're going to go with this to just, yeah, like all the body care products that are tons of
absolutely.
chemicals and all the plastics. That's a huge other story of like just from drinking water, out of a
Mm,
plastic bottle or all this stuff. Actually, Estrogeneration is a great book with Dr. Anthony J. He's
never
an
heard of it.
awesome guy. He's a friend of mine. He used to work at the Mayo Clinic and he's just a great PhD and wrote a book called Estrogeneration because we're the estrogeneration. It's like these high estrogen, basically throwing off your endocrine system, like you're
Right,
saying,
right.
all these plastics and endocrine disruptors.
Yeah, and everyone walking around with excess estrogen. Estrogen dominance is that's what what the title is pretty much what he's leaning towards,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about your skincare line. Why did you start a line that is based in animal fat, essentially, like applying animal fat to your body? I know me personally, like I'm just away from the toxins. And it's funny because when I was in Austin, and it was like one of the first times I traveled with like COVID and stuff, not because I was afraid or anything, it was just kind of the way
Mhm.
things worked out. But yeah, I was at the hotel and I'm just like, and I use conventional products, but normally I don't use conventional products. It's hard to avoid, It's like
Yeah.
you
Well, it's
gotta
everywhere.
go you gotta go out of your way to make it to avoid that stuff.
It's super hard. And yeah, everything around the modern world is really working against us. If you're on like the highest level, everything about modern society is kind of just working against you.
Hmm.
And I don't say we need to go back and live in a cave, but you kind of just need to undo all these modern norms. I call them just the norms. Like the modern norm society is just eat fast food and just like whatever. Like, oh, here's this soap that's like 99 cents for a bottle of shampoo,
Right,
and
right.
it's just pure chemicals. And you're just like, well, I don't know, dude. It's 99 cents. And like,
Yeah.
uh, like this. So everything about the modern diet and lifestyle is just kind of working against you. So you just need to be a little bit thoughtful and just go back a bit to the more natural version of each thing, right? And so then with my company's called Nose to Tail, by the way, and so we do meat, we do like food products, but then I started to realize, man, someone needs to do something about this body care industry.
Mm,
It's like
yeah.
it's just so unnatural, and it goes beyond just the toxins. It's like using animal fat is what we used to use on our bodies. It's like,
Hmm.
what else do we have? I mean, maybe if you're in a
Right.
tropical environment, you can use coconut oil,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
also good. And we use some coconut oil too, a bit of, but your body is made of saturated fat, right? That's
Yeah.
another reason why you don't want to use all the seed oils, because your body's made of saturated fat. You
Yeah.
don't want to
Like,
like crowd it out with all the polyunsaturated fats. And the same thing with putting it on your skin, not only eating it, but yeah, you don't want to spread all this oil that your body doesn't really know what to do with, and just chemicals. Your body knows what to do with saturated fat. So that's any animal fat, I think, is the best body care product. And you could, yeah, some people do it out of pig's lard. We use beef tallow, and we
mm,
use a beef suet too. This really good, the fat around the kidneys. It's like a really good,
mm,
just part fat that's, and
right.
we whip it too. It's like soft, and
Nice.
our main product is skin food. We have soap, but the skin food, it's like it's like a moisturizer, but it just soaks up into your skin. It's just
Ah,
amazing.
amazing.
I don't
Yeah.
want to try to like pitch my products. You can buy other products too that are made from beef fat, but it's just amazing that how your body responds to it. This is
Yeah.
crazy because we met at Paleo FX. There's this lady I know who told me this long story about her niece that got sunburned, and
Huh.
she happened to have some of my skin food, we call it the moisturizing cream,
Right, right.
and she covered her niece in the skin food, and she stopped crying and just like
Oh,
felt better, and
that's
like the
incredible.
sunburn like went away. And I thought it was so crazy because I just had a story the week before. I was playing beach volleyball, so I don't really use sunscreen. That's a whole nother story about not using sunscreen, just more chemicals. There's actually news articles about them being like recalled because they cause cancer.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, just a quick side tangent, but it's just like from your whole logical perspective, it's like you're literally taking a bunch of chemicals, putting them on your skin, letting the sun heat them up on your skin. So it's just like, why?
and blocking out the sun, which you need. Not that
Right.
you
And
should
then
get
blocking
burnt.
out the sun.
You definitely don't want to get burned, but you don't want to have zero sun. If you lather yourself in sunscreen every day and never like get real sun, you're not getting your vitamin D. So you want vitamin D from the sun in the appropriate amount, and you want to actually build a base tan so that you cannot have to use sunscreen. That's why humans were tanned, or that's why people are black. We used to all be black,
Mm,
right? And then we
yeah,
moved away from the equator up into the north, and then those people turned white basically because the sun wasn't as strong. So they needed to have a lighter skin color so they could get enough vitamin D
I
from
see.
the sun that wasn't as strong. So that's a crazy thing I learned in the past 5 years. But uh, yeah, that's why people are white and people are black. So you want that tan to protect yourself from the sun, especially in the summer. So this is back to my beach volleyball story. So I'm playing beach volleyball a lot. I'm out there all weekend, many hours in the sun. So I'm trying to build this base tan. Before I had the base tan, I got roasted. I was just out there for way too long, no sunscreen, got roasted, right? So just 5 hours in the middle of the day, Texas
Dang.
heat. And I spread this skin food, my skin food with the beef tallow, and it just turned into a tan. I didn't peel. I covered my 2 days. So the first day, the second day, just covered it, just turned into a
Oh,
tan, no peeling.
huh.
It's just, yeah, it's just what your
Interesting.
body needs. It's just your
Yeah.
body. I mean, it's just like the ultimate moisturizer.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And I did pick up some tallow-based skincare. It wasn't your product at Paleo
Mhm.
FX because you didn't have any there, but
Yeah.
I do plan to order some online now that I see that you have your liver boars in. So I want to get some of those and some of your skincare stuff too.
It's going to come back online. So we're getting more of the skin food. It's always sold out. So
Oh,
by the
so it still
time
is sold out.
it's still sold out, but we're
Okay.
we're making a small batch and then we're making a big batch. So yeah, there'll be a
Gotcha,
bit.
gotcha. When I was a
Mhm.
kid, I used to apply olive
Mhm.
oil before and
Mm.
after the sun. And my friends would be
Mhm.
like, how do you get so tan? And they would think I was crazy for applying like olive oil because they just like think it makes you burn. But like I would
Mhm.
never burn. So like you mentioning the tallow, the tallow that you applied to
Mhm.
yourself, turning this burn into a tan, just makes me rethink. Just makes me think about like applying. And olive oil is different. It's far more monosaturated fat,
Yeah.
but
It's
it,
more similar to what your body needs. Not polyuns. So it's interesting. Polyunsaturated fat, when people eat a lot of seed oils, they burn easier. And it
yeah.
seems like kind of like wacky and like not true to some people hearing it that when you stop eating seed oils, you don't burn as much. But it is a thing and it happens to a lot of people. And I heard Rob Wolf actually kind of explaining it too. It's like there's reasons that make sense. It's like your skin is not basically inflamed. It's like basically a bit inflammatory to you if you're eating all the seed oil. So once you stop eating it, it's not. Yeah,
Well,
it's just
no, it
better.
makes perfect sense because if you think about it, these seed oils, they become oxidized with low heat. So even like they don't tolerate heat well. So like when the sun is shining on you and you've ingested these seed oils, like you literally have seed oils in your body and your cells, try as they might, they're trying to make your cells out of these seed oils, even
Mm-hmm.
though it's not ideal. But your body is literally being made from these seed oils. It's not ideal, but that's what's happening. So the sun is like shining on you. The seed oils that your body is made of can't tolerate the sun. So like you start burning. So like
Mm-hmm.
to me, that's my logic. It makes sense.
It's not much more complicated than that.
Those are my thoughts.
Yeah.
But tell us how one lives a nose to tail life.
Yeah, it's hard. You got to reject the modern norms. Basically, you kind of have to just be a bit more thoughtful how you eat. I like to go to a farmer's market. That's the good first step. You don't have to get all of your food from the farmer's market. But
Hmm.
I lived in LA. That was a concrete jungle. And there was a farmer's market every few miles. Like on the weekend, there was like 6 farmers markets around LA. So I'd say start going there. You buy some meat from a local farmer, talk to them. They'll be like, hey, do you have any liver or what? Do you have the bone? Like, can I buy some bones off you?
Mm,
Like
yeah.
you can get the bones. You can make your own bone broth. If you get the big bones, you could, or if sometimes they sell them sliced, you can make your own bone marrow and just throw it in the oven with some salt, and you got bone marrow.
I love bone
Like it's
marrow.
so good. You don't have to go to a
Yeah.
restaurant and pay like $25 for bone marrow.
Yeah.
You
It's
can
so
just
easy to
get it.
make.
Yeah, it's great. People think it's some complex thing. It's like, oh man, I used to think this way. It's like, well, I don't know how to make bone marrow. I'm like, what do you mean? You just throw it in the oven with salt.
Yeah.
Like it's delicious. Like this was the first human food. Actually, I was just
Huh.
interviewing a great PhD, Jessica Thompson. There's many of these, Dr. Brianna Pobner, Dr. Bill Schindler, done episodes with all these people that are paleoanthropologists, and they're the ones
Mm,
studying the ancient bones and cut marks on them. And basically, 3.5 million years ago, it's kind of the first time we saw this. Is humans were just using rocks. Early humans, sorry, definitely not humans. Are the pre-humans were just taking rocks and smashing them into bone marrow, into bones that were lying
mm,
around, and eating the bone marrow and the brains. So after an animal, before we could even hunt, before we could do anything, when our
right.
brains were still small, we could go after an animal. There could be, a mammoth, a zebra, whatever, and,
Right.
and and it's just eaten apart by all the predators. But what's left is the bone marrow and the
Mm,
brain. Crack it open, so they study the percussive marks, and they can tell that humans, or sorry, I keep saying humans, pre-humans did this, and they just ate the marrow, and this was like a
wow.
huge source of nutrients and fat, and they ate the brain. uh I guess I'm not so big on eating brain, but yeah, people eat brain. It's like it's
Right,
got some good
right.
nutrients in it. And so yeah, my tangent went away from just living a nose to tail life, and yeah, having more ancestral life in general. I'd say just connect more back to where your food comes from, and
Mm,
yeah, like lift some weights, throw some weights around. Don't just sit on a treadmill for 45 minutes. Play a sport. Uh, talk to a rancher, figure out what they're doing. See if you can get some
yep.
bones from them. See if they'll sell you some heart, some kidney. Eat some different things. Yeah, I think you're kind of go down this rabbit hole. It's a bit of a journey. For
Yeah.
me, it was the 8-year journey. The first year, I wasn't going to my farmer's market and getting bones, but you can get there, right? You just keep going down that path, and you listen to more podcasts, you learn about it, you can read some books, and you talk to some
Absolutely.
farmers, and pretty soon you're kind of like, hey, I don't even need to go to a restaurant anymore. I'm over it.
Yeah.
You
That's
know
where that's where I feel I'm at.
exactly. That's where I'm at. I don't really go. People are like, oh, where's the good restaurants in Austin? Like, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Like, I've been to a couple. I don't know if that sounds crazy and people are going to listen to this and think we're just like wackos that won't go to a restaurant. But I do go, someone's in town. I'll go. Yeah, I'll go to a restaurant, but
Right, right.
it's not very desirable to me anymore.
Yeah, it's usually I'm there because someone else is pulling me to be there. But yeah, cool. I had no idea that bone marrow was one of the first foods that we were eating.
Absolutely. Huge part of our history for millions of years. Millions
Awesome.
of years. Like, just imagine like how slow this process was. But yes, bone marrow and brain. Huge.
Nice. I've been eating bone marrow for like the past 3 days. It's one of my favorites.
Wow.
Never,
Yeah, it's amazing. It's so good.
yeah, it's
It's just
delicious.
fat. It's just like a bunch of fat. So yeah,
Right,
like
right. I've never tried brain though. Have you?
the only time I have was in Africa. So that Hadza saying that after we ate the little tick, they cook the skull on the fire. And then there's this kid. The one guy was about, I don't know, he's 13. He was like kind of part of the adult group.
Mm.
And he was just gnawing on the head and like eating all the little bits off the skull. And then cracked open the skull. And then we scooped out some brain. And it was just like this kind of pudding. It was just like this kind of white,
Mm.
tasteless. It's like kind of fatty, tasteless thing. So
Mm.
that's the only brain I've ever eaten.
Interesting. So is it like the texture of like coconut oil when it's hard?
No, it's more puddingy. I don't know. Yeah, it's like I don't even know how to describe it. It's not
Okay.
it's a little more solid, but yeah, I
Yeah.
can't
You
think
weren't
of
you weren't a fan though, it sounds like.
oh no, it's fine. No, I was like, oh, it's more mental where you just like it just creeps you out.
Ah.
But I tasted, I'm like, oh no, it just tastes fine. It tastes like nothing.
Hmm. Interesting. Throw a little salt on it. It'll probably have
Yeah,
some
yes,
flavor.
we were lacking salt. Yeah, I think I needed salt.
Yeah. Excellent. Cool. So last question, Brian. What does it mean to you to achieve your highest health?
Mm, wow. Well, so for each person, I guess it's just like I guess it's the how you feel. If you're feeling like good every day, if you can actually tell yourself or not and be honest with yourself that you feel good and like it's hard to like tune into that,
Hmm.
right? Because a lot like I'm thinking back to my story and I was like, wow, I probably thought I was good, 8 years ago before, but then I wasn't because I'm like I would just eat and I'd like have heartburn and all these different things
Yeah.
would be happening.
But you
So
don't
I think
really
you have
know.
to no, you're right. You're right. You don't know that you're not feeling great. So I think everyone to achieve their highest health should like kind of really examine like, am I doing my best?
Hmm.
Right? Like, do I like go out and drink and then I'm like, feeling terrible on Mondays or something like just like really like take an honest look and like, am I feeling good? What can I do to be better? And yeah, a lot of it's going to be based around the ancestral principles of the diet, the movement, the sleep, and kind of just like getting out sun and nature and all that stuff. It's just examine like, am I just doing this and like being a victim of just like the modern culture,
Mm.
or am I like feeling amazing and like how can I just be better?
What would you say are your metrics for feeling good?
Uh wow. Where I could at any moment I could just go jump up and sprint 2 blocks. I've never thought about that, but yeah, like I don't think I used to feel like that, right?
Mm.
And a lot of people can't say that. But right now, I would go sprint 2 blocks right now. I wouldn't even warm up, and I could do it, and I would feel fine. And I
Amazing.
think, yeah, and I think that's what our ancestors could do, right? I
Yeah.
kind of picked that on purpose because if our ancestors, they had to do that or they die. So I think people could do that until they're 80. So I'm not saying it'd be super fast, maybe,
Right, right.
but I think they could do it when they're 80. I think our ancestors, like, that's how humans evolved. That's how we're still around, is because we could do that when we're 80.
Yeah.
And also with with the pygmies in Uganda, there was a woman who was over 100 that was jumping around dancing. Like she was going nuts. They did all these dances for us. And her daughter, her youngest daughter, was about like 90. She was dancing.
I've heard
She
you
was
talk
dancing.
about this before. It's incredible.
Yeah. And that's how humans are. So yes, that's sort of the metric. I think if you can do that, and everyone, humans have that capability,
Hmm.
right? They have that
Absolutely.
capability, so just know it's possible. So make changes and learn until you can do that.
I love that. It makes me think of my dog and just animals in general. It's they wake up from a nap and they're just like ready to run. At least my dog is like she's just ready to
Immediately.
run. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
she doesn't need to like get a coffee or like have this like grace period.
I just saw this. I like this. I'm glad you asked that. I'm gonna remember this because it's a good kind of metric or thing to think about.
Awesome. Well, hey, I'm glad I gave you an opportunity to think about it. Well, hey, thank you so much, Brian. I really appreciate you coming on today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Is there anything else that you want to tell listeners about what you're working on? If there's anything else you like to share.
Oh, yeah. I always just say eat densely, move intensely. That's my tagline.
I
So it's
love
kind of
it.
all the things we talked about. Instead of eat less, move more, which is meaningless, eat less, move more. Everyone knows that and it doesn't work. Eat densely, move intensely is eat nutrient dense foods, which is everything we've talked about. And move intensely is also everything we talked about. Throw some weights around, sprint. You don't have to throw weights around. You can do pull ups, you can do push ups. That's my tagline. And yeah, find me on social media at Food Lies. And you just kind of search Food Lies on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I love to just share things each day and just kind of try to wake people up and help them.
You have a really funny feed.
I have to throw in humor into it just to get people to take a notice.
No, the entertainment value alone is worth it.
All right.
Cool. Thanks, Brian.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Highest Help. If you gained value from today's episode, leave a review, share with a friend, or post on social media. If you're interested in achieving your highest help or already pursuing it, send me a DM. I'd love to hear from you.